Chapter 5: The Lore, Logic, and Genesis of the Truth Machine. While the corporate titans of the Hyperledger Consortium were assembling the chassis of the machine in brightly lit boardrooms, a parallel narrative was unfolding in the digital underground. As we established in the pre-Genesis prophecy, the domain smartcontract.com was registered in the shadow of Bitcoin's birth, a forensic anomaly that suggests the connectivity layer was anticipated from the very beginning. But a domain name is just a digital plot of land. It requires an architect to build upon it. The architect who emerged from that domain was Sergey Nazarov. Whether by incredible foresight, lucky acquisition, or a deeper connection to the industry's origins, Nazarov took control of that digital territory and spent the next decade attempting to solve the blindness of the blockchain. The wilderness years, iterating toward truth. Before Chainlink became the industry standard, Sergey Nazarov and his co-founder Steve Ellis spent years in the wilderness, wandering through the early chaotic experiments of the crypto-anarchist phase. These years were not wasted, they were a series of calculated failures that proved the necessity of the Oracle. QED Capital, Nazarov's early firm, was actively engaged in the space when Bitcoin traded at double digits. But unlike the speculators, they were auditing the code, searching for the structural limitations of the ledger. Cryptomail, built on the NXT blockchain, this project proved that blockchain data could be immutable and uncensorable. It was a victory for privacy, but it lacked external utility. Secure Asset Exchange, SAE, this was the pivotal moment. SAE was a proto-DeFi platform, a decentralized exchange attempting to settle revenue-sharing contracts. It worked perfectly in code, but failed in reality. Why? Because the blockchain could not see the bank accounts. It could not verify if a fiat payment had arrived. It was this specific failure, the blindness of the blockchain, that crystallized the mission. The team realized that the entire industry was building a world computer with no internet connection. They pivoted the entire focus of smartcontract.com to solving this single fatal flaw. The result was Chainlink, the academic high priest, Ari Juels. If Sergey Nazarov provided the visionary drive, Dr. Ari Juels provided the impregnable mathematical fortress. Juels is not a typical startup advisor. A former chief scientist at RSA, the security giant, and a professor at Cornell Tech, Juels is a titan of cryptography. He is the man who formalized proof of work in 1999, the very mechanism Satoshi would use to secure Bitcoin a decade later. When Juels joined the project, he didn't just bring credibility, he brought the holy grail of cryptographic research. 1. Town Crier, a method for using trusted execution environments, hardware-based security like Intel SGX, to bridge data. 2. Deco, decentralized Oracle, a revolutionary use of zero-knowledge proofs that allows a user to prove a fact about their bank account, for example, I have $1 million, without revealing their login credentials or the balance itself. Juels represents the bridge between the theoretical perfection of the God protocol and the messy reality of the banking system. His integration transformed Chainlink from a crypto project into a piece of scientific infrastructure. The digital catacombs, the cult of the Marine. No history of Chainlink is complete without acknowledging the Link Marines. While traditional venture capitalists ignored the project, a collective intelligence formed in the anonymous catacombs of 4chan's Biz board. This was not a typical fan club, it functioned more like a decentralized intelligence agency. Led by a prophetic, pseudonymous poster known as Assblaster, this community began to decipher the corporate silence of the Chainlink team. In an era where other crypto projects were hyping non-existent partnerships, Chainlink was notoriously silent. The Marines interpreted this silence not as weakness, but as evidence of high-level non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. Assblaster's famous axiom became the scripture of the community. The scope of what they are building is literally illegal to disclose. You don't announce you are replacing the back end of the global financial system on a Tuesday through forensic analysis of GitHub repositories, LinkedIn connections, and obscure conference slide decks. The Marines identified the partnerships with Swift, Google, and Oracle years before they were officially announced. They coined the term breadcrumbing, the theory that the team was leaving subtle clues for the observant while maintaining the silence required by their corporate partners. This generated a unique sociological phenomenon, a frantic cult-like accumulation of the token based on the belief that Chainlink was the singularity of the financial system. History would prove their paranoia correct. Conclusion: the lore of Chainlink paints a picture of a project that is fundamentally different from its peers. It was not built to facilitate gambling or speculation. It was built to correct the original sin of the blockchain, its isolation. By the time the rest of the market understood the importance of oracles, Chainlink had already secured the physics of the market via Juels patents and the politics of the market via the Swift integration. The anomaly of 2008 remains an unsolved mystery. But the result is clear: the ledger had found its logic. The machine could finally see. Interlude: the Great Filter. Why the trillions waited. For 15 years, the cryptocurrency market has been a noisy paradox. To the retail observer, the revolution seemed to be moving at light speed. Bitcoin went from pennies to tens of thousands of dollars. NFTs sold for millions. Yield farmers were printing money out of thin air in the DeFi summer of 2020. It appeared as though the old world was crumbling and the new world had arrived. But to the forensic observer, there was a deafening silence. The institutional cosmos, the $100 trillion asset management industry, the $300 trillion real estate market, and the $700 trillion derivatives market had not moved an inch. They watched, they researched, but they did not touch. This silence was not due to ignorance. It was due to the Great Filter, the tale of two internets. To understand why the banks waited, one must understand that for the last decade we have been living in two parallel digital universes. Universe A is retail theater. This is the world of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana as the public knows them. It is built on the principles of anonymity, radical transparency, and code is law. In this universe, if you send money to the wrong address, it is gone forever. If a hacker exploits a bug in a smart contract, the theft is legal because the code allowed it. If you want to trade, you must broadcast your intentions to the entire world. Universe B is institutional reality. This is the world of JP Morgan, BlackRock, and the DTCC. It is built on the principles of identity, privacy, and legal finality. In this universe, anonymity is a crime, money laundering. Radical transparency is a weakness, front-running. And code is law is a fantasy. In the real world, law is law. If a trade goes wrong, there must be a throat to choke and a contract to enforce. For a decade, these two universes were incompatible. A regulated bank cannot legally hold an asset if it doesn't know who is on the other side of the trade. A pension fund cannot trade on a blockchain where its proprietary trading strategies are visible to its competitors. The Great Filter was the barrier between these worlds. It was a wall of regulatory iron that kept the quadrillions of dollars of global wealth safely locked away from the chaotic innovation of the blockchain. The airlock. This brings us to the true function of the infrastructure we have been discussing. Chainlink is not merely a data feed, it is the airlock between Universe A and Universe B. Through privacy-preserving protocols like DECO and CCIP, Chainlink solved the trilemma of adoption that had paralyzed the banks. 1. Identity. It allowed institutions to prove who they were, KYC, without revealing their private data to the public chain. 2. Privacy. It allowed them to transact on public networks while keeping the details of the trade, amounts, strategies encrypted. 3. Connectivity. It allowed them to use their existing legacy systems, Swift, to interact with the new world, providing a liability shield. The reason the Link Marines of Chapter 5 were so fanatical, and the reason the Silent Titans of Chapter 7 were so quiet, is that they both saw the airlock opening. The retail market was distracted by the carnival of token prices. The architects were waiting for the filter to pass, and now, With the launch of the projects we are about to explore, the filter has been lifted. The airlock is open, the retail theater is over, the institutional reality is about to begin. Chapter 6. The Quadrillion Oracle. The Architecture of the Airlock. The great filter has lifted. The airlock is open. Now, we must examine the machinery that allows the institutional cosmos to flow into the new world. The objective of Chainlink is not to be the next Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a currency, Chainlink is a standard. Its target is not the $2 trillion crypto market, but the encapsulation of the real-world assets, RWAs, that underpin the entire global economy. The $393 trillion global real estate market. The $140 trillion global bond market. The $700+ trillion derivatives market. To capture this value, Chainlink has deployed a three-part architecture, a holy trinity of infrastructure designed to make the transition inevitable. 1. The golden record, the truth. The most significant validation of this thesis comes from the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, DTCC. To the average citizen, the DTCC is an unknown acronym. To the financial system, it is the beating heart. It processes quadrillions of dollars in securities transactions annually. It is the ultimate record keeper of the American economy. In the pre-blockchain era, every bank kept its own ledger. JP Morgan had a record of a bond's price, and BNY Mellon had a slightly different record of the same bond. This fragmentation cost billions in reconciliation errors. In the SmartNav pilot, involving the titans of custody JP Morgan, State Street, and BNY Mellon, the DTCC used Chainlink CCIP to solve this. They demonstrated that Chainlink could serve as a chain-agnostic abstraction layer, creating a unified golden record. This is a singular, immutable source of truth for asset data that lives on-chain. If the DTCC uses Chainlink to broadcast this record, Chainlink effectively becomes the ticker tape of the digital age. It ceases to be a tool and becomes the medium through which value is perceived. 2. The single access point, the gateway. If the DTCC is the ledger, SWIFT is the messenger. Connecting over 11,000 banks in 200 countries, SWIFT is the nervous system of global money. For years, crypto-anarchists predicted that blockchain would kill SWIFT. They were wrong. The system does not destroy itself, it evolves. Chainlink's strategy was not conquest but integration. The single access point thesis is simple. Bank managers do not want to manage private keys, learn Solidity, or audit smart contracts. They want to sit at their existing terminals and type standard payment instructions. Through the integration of the Chainlink runtime environment, CRE, legacy SWIFT messages, ISO 20022, are translated into blockchain transactions. A bank in New York can send US dollars via SWIFT, and Chainlink's CCIP translates that value into a tokenized asset on Ethereum, settling in seconds. The banks do not need to overhaul their infrastructure, they simply plug into the superorganism. 3. Economics. 2. The shield. As the $800 trillion of real-world assets begins to cross this bridge, the incentive to attack the bridge becomes infinite. If a hacker could corrupt the Oracle, they could steal the GDP of a nation. To counter this, Chainlink introduced Economics 2 and superlinear staking. This is not merely a reward mechanism, it is a weaponized economic defense. It relies on a game-theoretic prisoner's dilemma. The system requires attackers to possess a budget greater than the combined deposits of all nodes, a quadratic wall of money that makes an attack mathematically impossible to profit from. Furthermore, a secondary network of watchdog nodes, alerters, is incentivized to spot corruption. If a node lies, the watchdogs slash its stake, taking the money for themselves. This digital bridge charges a toll paid in truth.